Who's the good guys? Who's the bad guys? Well, we all know we're the good guys. And those other people, they're the bad guys, right? Is it really that simple? I think you know better. So Sam and I investigate this a little bit and do not claim to be absolutely right, but we try to understand what the hell's going on. Is business the good guys and government are the bad guys? Or government the good guys and business is the bad guys? Or are they both in it together and they're all bad? Could be. So we're going to look at that. We also do spend a little time talking about the Middle East and what the hell's going on there. And there certainly are no simple answers, but we try to gain a little more understanding of that. Now, this was recorded a little ahead of Charlie Kirk being assassinated, so there won't be any discussion of that there. But we might all contemplate what the hell is going on here. That innocent people who never said an angry word to anyone can be shot. That's bad enough, but there are people celebrating it. Who are these people? Like I said, we don't discuss that here. I'll let you try to figure that out for yourself. Thanks for watching. Another thing that just I couldn't believe, not in this country, other countries, not in this country, when banks started shutting people's accounts down politically. Oh my God. And then people made excuses for them. Oh, it's their bank, they can do what they want. Yeah. Holy shit. But the prime example is Canada when the truckers had their accounts closed and everything.
Yeah, well, Canada is the leading communist nation in the Northern Hemisphere, so I wouldn't put it past them. But here in America, the United States of America, it's truly, I think it's indicative of the type of power that institutions perceive can be wielded against them by the federal government. And parallel apparatuses of the federal government. I think we saw a lot of this happen under democratic regimes because institutions said, well, they're in power, they're pressuring us to do this. Essentially, let's take the path of least resistance and let's do what they say, because they were scared.
And maybe partly scared and partly they're in league with them anyway, you know. I mean, you cannot separate the federal government from, well, what's the expression they made up that's very accurate actually, well, missed it again, but there's so much hand in glove between the federal government and big business and big banking. You can't separate them. There's no separation point. They're so tied together that when they say, oh, a bank can do what it wants, well, a bank can't do squat unless the government okays it and gives them a charter and so forth. So the government, certain politicians in the government are waving the charter in front of the bank and say, you know, those people over there are a problem. I don't think they should be funded, you know. What do you think? Oh, you're probably right. Can we have our charter back? You know, so yeah. They should never, every friggin' American, I don't care how liberal, conservative, or what, sees even a hint of that should go ballistic. Because it may be them this time, it's going to be you the next time. Exactly. You know, yeah, just unbelievable that they get away with it. And
and what's someone going to do, you know? Let's say I get debanked tomorrow. I don't have the legal manpower to go sue a bank on an equal rights.
Yeah, they may have broken every law in the book, but what are you going to do about it? You know?
I can't do anything.
That scares the hell out of me.
I mean, it's. But I think if there's anything to learn from it, is that there are certain political interests that we have clearly perceived that are willing to weaponize by any means against political opponents.
Yep.
And, you know, I am happy on one hand that this instance and other instances have occurred, because it makes these types of entities more transparent to what they are and what their motives are.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only hope that constituents can see this as well and make informed decisions as to who
Yeah.
they want to represent.
Well, let's hope we get there, but when you have an educational system that asleep at the switch or even is involved in a lot of this, when you have federal money in the middle of, seems to me, in the middle of everything, pulling strings and making things happen, that gets scary.
Absolutely.
So,
But I think, and we'll see what happens in the midterms,
mhm.
but I think past November was certainly a step in the right direction.
Absolutely, and I know there's some people listening going, "What? No, he's trying to be a dictator. He's trying to be the king. He's all this and this and that." And it's funny, interesting thing about Trump, of course. He's always been kind of a one-man show, and in government, I don't care who you are, how totalitarian you are, you still kind of do this song and dance about we're all in this together, yada yada, and bring the parties together. And Trump has basically said, "Let's cut the crap here." It's been a partisan country forever. It's been a partisan federal government forever, and he's not dancing around it. And he's been screwed over royally. I don't blame him as far as he's going after the people who screwed him over. I think that's to the benefit of America.
Well, I mean, if people that are saying Trump's a dictator, and they take examples like going after banks that block people because of their political views, or certain elected officials that went after people based on their political views, if that makes him a dictator, it's kind of like the pot calling the kettle black.
Absolutely.
So I think those people that levy that accusation and qualify it that way, I mean, not to say that they couldn't make a good argument for why Trump is veering towards dictatorial measures.
Yeah. I mean, you give this movement 20 years, they could be oppressive and repressive and all that. I don't see it at this point, but you always have to keep your eyes open.
Sure, I'm just saying it's to me, if those are the examples, it's kind of an equal playing field.
Yeah. I mean, right now Trump is hammering on the people who did horrible things to start with, like the banks and debanking people, which should never happen.
Yeah.
So Trump's just going after them. Well, good. But if he kept going the other direction, you could see, well, this movement could start debanking those people.
Exactly.
And we're nowhere near that at this point. Like to think it never will happen, but you can't say it's not possible. So
Anything is possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the whole idea, as Ben Franklin pointed out about our republic, is we'll have it for as long as we keep it.
That's right.
For as long as we insist on it. Then, and which one was it that said, as soon as people realize, as soon as people come to believe they can vote themselves prosperity, it all goes to hell. Who was that?
Sounds like Reagan.
No, way ahead of Reagan.
Oh.
We're talking, the beginnings of.
Oh no, Reagan was.
Yeah, I'm sure he said it, but it started with. I forget. But anyway, yeah, that's been around, and it's true. They say that the Greek democracies collapsed because everybody thought, I'll just vote myself an income, so I don't need to work, and so nobody worked. We're doing that right now today. I look at how little this country produces.
Yeah.
I think, Jesus. So yeah, and again, I personally like that Trump is working to bring production back into this country, because if we get the trade imbalance back to zero or even plus, the way it has been in the past, then we start paying down the national debt, and we're all better for it.
Yeah, I am not.
We've had this conversation,
Yeah.
so you go ahead and say what you've got to say.
Well, I'm not. I like the idea of bringing in foreign investment and onshoring manufacturing to a degree, I think any production is good production, but I don't in any means, in any way, want to see America be a manufacturing economy. I want it to stay a service-based economy, but have a much higher GDP. And
Well, to explain that one, how do we have a higher GDP and hold the manufacturing or production back?
well, I don't want to. I don't think there's a benefit of having Americans manufacture cheap goods. I'd much rather offshore cheap good production. I want high skill labor.
Who says you
manufacturing.
can't do both?
You can.
As a former employer, I can guarantee you there's people who are never going to be involved in high-skilled work. So let them scoot
you
some
can
witches
do both.
together, you know?
You can do both. I just don't want it to be the primary.
Sure.
Because that kind of disenfranchises the economic order that we've manufactured
Yeah.
for ourselves, that has given us that reserve currency status. But to your point, I would like to see high skill manufacturing come back, and for us to have the ability to manufacture during wartime. And I think
That's a big one, yeah.
wartime in
If
terms
the
of-
guy, if the people you're at war with are your supplier of your raw materials for making war goods, you got a problem.
Exactly.
Which is largely the way it is.
Exactly.
That's insane. The reason that World War II went as well as it did is because we were the people that had the materials. Germany didn't, and Japan didn't, still doesn't. So once we closed off their supply of materials, they were in deep shit. Yeah. Well, right now it's the other way.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
and-
So that's the kind of the extent to which I'd like to see manufacturing go.
yeah. Well, I've personally been that way. I'm very self-sufficient, which is not to say so self-sufficient that I don't need to draw on other people's abilities and so forth, resources. But I can get a lot accomplished by myself if I have to.
That is evident by the fruits of your labor, Chip.
Yeah, and not just the part that shows, but I can. If the car doesn't work, I've got a good chance of figuring out why not, and so forth.
Admirable.
Well, and it helps, especially when you go to the mechanic and you don't know if he's BSing you or knows what he's talking about.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I can have a conversation with a mechanic, and
Yeah. That's good.
yeah. So, well, I don't know. We've solved a lot, but I think I understand a lot more. So hopefully, other people do.
And don't forget to submit your questions to The Radical Individualist.
That is. Thank you very much. Individualistunite.substack.com. All kinds of answers in there, and certainly a place to put your questions. So we've talked about the United States and we've talked about money. I got a feeling if we solved all of the United States problems, there would still be problems in the world.
Yeah, we'd all be rich. Terrible problem.
Yeah. Well, for instance, Africa, and this is one that's I'm sensitive to. There's a woman named, I'll give her a free plug, Magatte Wade, who's African. I can't remember what country, but she's an entrepreneur in Africa, and she basically says, please stop helping us. Please stop sending us free stuff. We need to get our own productivity going. And people, every time somebody tries to produce something in Africa, free stuff shows up and just blows their, who's going to buy anything from this guy in Africa when free stuff is coming from America, So she makes a good point.
Well, on top of that, I think it's self-evident here that the more social services we have funded through the federal government, the less productive those population segments become.
Sure.
And we see that also in Africa, because why go out and if you're below a certain income bracket here in the United States and you have X amount of children, you actually get money from the government.
Getting a job would represent a decrease in pay in a sense. It's true. It happens that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have the government has created a perverse incentive to be unproductive,
Yeah.
which also circles back to our inflation argument. Which actually brings me to something that I had kind of a Nostradamus experience a few months ago. I don't know how familiar you are with the new tax legislation.
The big beautiful bill. I'm familiar with it. I try to keep up with what's going on.
So a couple months before the bill passed, I floated an idea to my coworkers and my family and friends, which was an idea essentially. It was an idea to reform Social Security. And I don't know your thoughts on Social Security, Chip, but I think it's kind of a scam.
So do I.
Okay.
And I'm on it. I'm drawing from it now. If I'd had the option, if it had been an opt-in, I would not have opted in.
So I proposed a plan to my cohorts that was anyone 35 and up, they get Social Security, they can't opt out. Anyone 34 to 18 can opt out of Social Security, so meaning they won't get tax withheld for Social Security, but they won't get Social Security. What they paid into the system thus far is in the system. Everyone who's currently born when they turn 18 can opt in or opt out of Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone not yet born, when they are born, gets $1,000 deposited in a U.S. stock-based trust account that is tax-free once they turn 65. So I did the math. Taking the maximum distribution that you can get monthly on Social Security, starting at 65, with an average life expectancy of, I believe, 80 or 85, you take out, over that lifetime, that 25 years, just over $300,000. So you can still be living paycheck to paycheck, but you get $300,000. Assuming the average rate of return for the stock market for the past 60 years at just over 10%, but let's just call it 10%. When someone turns 65, they would have over $500,000 available to them to spend as they would. $1,000 at birth would massively decrease the deficit, because the deficit would essentially have a curve where it would be they would have more of a funding gap, but then it would decrease over time and eventually be phased out, so that all we would have is however many children are born, that $1,000, and that's essentially your Social Security expense.
Now I have one little problem with that, is doing that would influence the market, God knows how. So it could depress the market in a sense. I mean, if everybody's putting money in, depress it in the sense that, the value of stocks goes up because everybody's putting money in, but somehow I see a problem there. On the other, and I want, since you say that, because people have said this all along anyway, folks out there, if you just had a child born, come up with $1,000, wherever you're going to come up with it, buy $1,000 worth of stock or whatever, and leave it there. It can be huge.
Well, so in the big beautiful bill, this was months after I had proposed this idea.
Okay.
They had put in MAGA baby accounts.
Okay.
So I'm actually expecting my first child in February.
I didn't know that. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I won't disclose the gender yet, but only because my parents don't know either, and they're going to watch this podcast.
You tell me before you tell them.
Exactly.
We're all in trouble. Yeah.
But so these MAGA baby accounts, are $1,000 when the baby's born into a stock index funds, in S&P 500 index fund, available when they are 18 years old. I mean,
So that's an opt-in kind of thing? You can
it's
do
not
that?
opted in. You don't opt in or out, you just get it. But this is babies that aren't born after December 31st, 2025, or January 1st, 2025.
26?
I think it's 25.
Really? So it's in effect, basically.
I believe so.
Oh, man, how did I not know that?
Yeah,
Okay.
huge.
Yeah.
So this was my Nostradamus experience where,
Yeah.
and to that point, the gubernatorial candidate Vivek Ramaswamy has also floated that as a state initiative,
Mm-hmm.
and he's actually floated it again. This is a few months after I proposed this to my close peers
Sue his ass off. He stole your idea.
as a replacement for Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
This would dramatically, if this could really get teeth, this could be a huge problem
Yeah.
solver.
I'll only just say that it would, I just know it would skew the economy some way or another, that you can't, like what's Schrodinger's box kind of thing, like if you open the box to find out if the cat's dead or alive and throw $1 billion in there while you're doing it, it's going to change things, is what I'm getting at.
So I'll let you ponder the steel man against this proposal, but to that point, think about it as kind of a self-equalizing force, or a self-leveling system where money goes in every year into these indexes, but also every year new people are turning 65, and so they're drawing or they're keeping it in there or whatnot. So
Mhm.
in my mind, it only has a positive effect,
Mm-hmm.
because essentially,
Yeah, I can't say anything wrong with it. I'm just not convinced there isn't a problem there somewhere. Speaking of which, people are in a panic over populations declining.
yes.
I think overall it's a good thing, but it will affect the economy for sure.
You think population decreases is a good thing?
Less strain on the planet.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna take Social Security. The whole idea behind Social Security is there's more and more people being born, which is not exactly true, but because people are just living longer more than that, more and more people are being born. But there was a population increase in births,
Yeah.
but not as dramatic as people think. It was mostly just people living longer. The population of the world doubled in my lifetime, but that wasn't because twice as many people were born. Well, you top out at some point. People aren't living longer, and now you've topped out. The population isn't growing at the rate it's been growing, because again, it's not so much about births. Well, birth rates are declining, not by huge amounts, but birth rates are declining, and people aren't getting any older, so they're dying at a steady pace. Population declines, and I think it's a real thing that's happening, going to happen, almost unavoidable. Surely that affects the economy, because we need more houses. Whoops, wait, no, we don't. So now you don't need carpenters and electricians quite so much, and so forth. Farmland becomes less valuable. Farmers are overproducing, perhaps. Food manufacturing is overproducing for a declining population. It will have to be dealt with. I don't think it's going to cave in or anything. So it could make for a better life for everybody, possibly. But it's going to happen, I think. And again, I'm not saying the population will collapse anywhere in the world, but I think it will decline.
Well, here in the West, I'm a proponent of increasing the replacement rate. Social Security and essentially all social safety nets they bank on new people coming in,
Mm-hmm.
being born, contributing, being productive to essentially provide for a growing number of non-productive people
Right,
who can't
right.
provide for themselves. Also with regards to, let's say farming or apartment building or whatever, if the population declines so much vis-a-vis a declining replacement rate, then you could have economic calamity because
That makes a mess out of Social Security for sure. But
Social
if
Security and also production.
yeah, but suppose productivity goes up anyway because of continued modernization of production, which has been going on all along here.
But then you could have more efficient production.
Well, that's what I
But-
mean. Yeah.
You'd have more efficient production, but you wouldn't have the consumers to prop up the growing industry.
Well, what I'm getting at is you wouldn't need more workers to produce exactly the same amount of stuff.
Correct, but it's the demand that you have to be worried about. The supply of goods wouldn't be a problem necessarily, and you may have enough people to create those goods if you become more efficient. But if you don't have enough people to consume those goods, then you have a real problem.
Well, I think we've had that problem for about 200 years because we buy things now that people couldn't even have contemplated buying before. You own a TV, a computer, a cell phone. Well, 25 years ago, you didn't buy a cell phone. About that same time ago, you didn't buy a computer. Nobody bought a TV until, realistically, as far as a lot of people buying a TV, until the 1950s. Washers and dryers, no. Cars 200 years ago didn't exist. Not even 200, 150 years ago, there's no such thing as a car. You can think of the things you buy and what you pay for them that weren't even available in the not so distant past.
Well, think about goods that have existed.
The what?
Think about goods that have existed throughout history.
Well, sure, like food.
Food,
Yeah.
right? So apple farmers.
Mm.
If their population declines vis-a-vis a declining birth rate, people who are producing now have to produce less and less, even if they are efficient enough.
Well, there's less and less farmers because I guess it's the other side of that coin. Farmers produce so much, you don't need so many farmers, and there are less farmers, because of that, by a lot.
There's more farmers because of the production has become centralized and also efficient, to your point.
Both centralized and efficient.
But
yeah.
if you take a declining demand over a period of 100 years, those centralized, more efficient farmers have to decrease their output because the demand is much lower, and then they have to fire people.
Who get a job making God knows what 50 years from now that we don't even know that market's ever going to exist. We
Well,
can't even hardly guess what.
But they would
people-
only get another job if there was a demand somewhere else, which you have
Which
to
there
have.
probably will be. Part of my theory of life is people will buy whatever. For instance, designer. I don't know why this popped in my head. Designer handbags. Oh yeah, I got to have that $500 designer handbag. If the money's there, people will find a way to spend it.
I agree.
And I don't worry about that so much. I've seen so much change take place. I'm not going to even venture a guess what's going to be going on 50 years from now. But I don't see where there won't be enough available, which is always your main point. People suffered greatly from there not being enough of something. I don't see people suffering from there being too much. It will get worked out. After all, the federal government pays people, dairy farmers, to produce milk that they dump down the drain. Let's face it, that's stupid. Work it out.
I do agree with you, but
So no, I don't worry about there's too much of stuff. That will get worked out one way or another.
it's not the excess supply. Again, with a decreased replacement rate, you have to worry about a declining demand for those goods.
Well, yeah, but there'll be demand for something else.
But as people aren't there to demand those goods, there inherently won't be a demand.
They'll work it out. I'm not too much of anything is not a problem. Because like you said, yeah, okay, they'll overproduce and maybe they won't be dumping it all down the drain like the federal government pays farmers to do. They'll work something out. They'll go down to a 20-hour week. I've always thought, coming down to a 32-hour week is a great idea, except as a skilled person who dealt with skilled people, you cut all those people down to 32 hours, you've just cut the skilled workforce down by 20%. We can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, that would put us in big trouble. They should be working 60 hours for all the demand there is.
Yeah.
You cut plumbers down to 20 by 20%, we've got a problem. Other than that, I would say let's cut everybody down to 32 hours. Presto, more jobs, more people employed.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't replace. You can't cut back the man hours of plumbers and then replace them with doofuses who don't know how to do anything. So there's I've seen it, I've looked at it, and I said we got a problem that way.
Yeah.
But related to that, because during COVID, and everybody's going to say, "Oh, we'll all work at home," and who's saying that? Well, journalists. All the people who are on the media say we'll work from home because they can work from home. Not everybody works at a typewriter, or a keyboard. Plumbers are going to work from home. Carpenters, truckers, get real. I've said, and I pissed off a few people saying it. I say, if you can do your job at a keyboard, you don't have a very important job. Now, I know I'm stepping on your toes, but the stuff you do involves more than the keyboard, but you just do it at the keyboard. But there's people that if they stop punching keys on their keyboard, it would make essentially no difference.
Yeah.
There's a lot of such people, so. And I'm not saying don't do it. I spend a lot of time on my keyboard. I write a lot. I enjoy doing it. I think I'm writing beautiful things.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had never done it, or if I stopped doing it, the world's going to keep spinning. It's going to make no difference.
That's true.
Let's get real. So there's that. But if you and what I'm getting at, what led me to this is we've already got an oversupply of labor to the point where people can do things that if they didn't do them, it wouldn't make any difference. So what the hell?
Haven't thought about it that way.
Yeah. And I don't mean everybody to keep one. I mean, I go to the doctor's office, he's there on his keyboard today, and the nurses do, typing in stuff that I tell them and everything, and looking at my records that come instantly up on screen instead of pulling out a folder from some file someplace.
Right.
So no, I'm not knocking keyboards, but still, they didn't exist 25 years ago. Somehow we managed. So.
It's true.
Yeah. Honestly, I think about it, and again, running my business, started off with everything's on paper, because that's all there was.
Yeah.
Everything's on paper, and by the time I was out of there, everything's on a computer. You want to talk about a change, and it was a very thankful change. There were downsides to that. CNC production has its issues. CAD drawings were, the initial versions of that were hard. I just assumed doing on paper, drawing by hand, is some of the crap that came out of that software. But now it's like it's amazing. So yeah, lots of good comes from it. And yet I say, how much has it affected my life? Not that much. So take it however you want, I guess. But cell phones, are they convenient? Yeah. But I got along just fine without them. I punched the buttons on a landline, and somehow I was in my car, nobody could reach me. That wasn't all bad,
Right.
So,
Right.
So yeah.
Well, I think maybe there is a excess of supply of labor, but I think we don't have as high of a labor participation as the picture you're painting.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what you alluded to. We have unskilled people that aren't labor participants, and
Yes.
it affects their lifestyle for sure. And if there are that many people's lifestyle are affected in this country, then it's one way or another, it affects all of us. And,
Exactly.
so I go along with that, which gets me right back to let's make everybody skilled and then cut them down to 32-hour weeks, and we'll be in the same place, except it'll be more equitable. You want equity, that's how you get it. So
Yeah, and that solves a lot of the governmental problems with regards to social services, and
Mm-hmm.
as more people are skilled laborers, they don't require so much assistance, and
Oh, for sure.
they kind of become more self-sufficient, and they can't as easily be bought with their own tax dollars by
Yeah.
politicians.
Yeah.
But I think you're always going to have a segment of society that is non-productive and unwilling to participate in society for whatever reason.
Well, I say, as I sometimes says, no, you don't have to work and you don't have to eat.
Right.
So.
But I think for the economy to grow, which is an important thing, knowing that you have a segment of the population that's unproductive, you do need to increase the amount of new babies that are put into the system.
But on the other hand, you want to talk about a Ponzi scheme, let's talk about continually growing the population of the Earth, which I don't think anybody still can even guess how many people the Earth really could hold. But at some point you say, there's limits to everything. At some point you say, we cannot put more people on this Earth. I don't think we're anywhere near that.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, but I see no reason if at the very least the world's population starts to stabilize, and I think we're approaching that point for all the things I've talked about, is unless people start living to be 150, we're approaching the limit of lifespans that have been increasing the population of the Earth in the first place. So it's going to reach a peak, at which point, yeah, the only way you can do is to solve that is crank out more babies, and yet people are having fewer babies by and large. So
And you don't think that's a problem?
I think, like anything, sudden change can be so sudden that you can't do anything with it. If it's slow enough, yeah, people will deal with it.
People will deal with a declining population of
Yeah.
productive people.
Yeah.
I feel like if we do see that even over time, you have a decline in the amount of productive members of society. That
He'll say it's proportional, so it's.
Well, I don't think it would become more disproportionate, because more people, as we've seen with life expectancy, it goes up more and more. So presumably we could, in 50 to 100 years, be living to 100.
I know the curve is flattening out as far as lifespans.
It's flattening out over time, but it still does have potential to increase dramatically.
As you come up with some new gene therapy
Exactly.
or something, people live for 500 years. I don't know.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but again, even at those ages, they're still going to be relatively non-productive, and you're going to have, on top of the people that could be productive that are younger, mixed with an aging population that becomes even older and non-productive, you're going to have a disproportionate amount of unproductive people. That, in my mind, opens the door much wider to totalitarian regimes that say, we don't have enough people to supply basic needs and so on and so forth. The government needs to come in and solve all these
They'll do
problems.
that no matter what. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile no matter what.
Well, I think if you give birth to more people that become more self-sufficient,
But you don't know they'll be more self-sufficient.
well, by virtue of having more babies,
Some of
you
them are going to be
increase the
yeah.
amount of
But on the
people
other
that
hand,
are
some of those babies are going to be in that drain. So
Sure. I don't think it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think you're certainly damned if you don't.
I don't see that. If you read Brave New World, okay, because of course that's
It's been a while.
yeah, it's been a little while for me, and of course that's a dystopian novel. But it's a dystopian novel to a degree that everybody's happy, everybody's having a good time because the government takes such good care of them. The trouble is they're mindless, they're all interchangeable because they're all the same person essentially and can't take care of themselves at all. And of course the protagonist is thinking this ain't right, so that's what you get into there. So again, it's just science fiction, but is this the case with science fiction a lot of the time? It's an attempt to extrapolate what we're experiencing to some sense of how it could turn out. And I think we're headed that direction. I don't think it'll ever be Brave New World the way it shows in the book, but we're headed there now as far as so many people do expect government to handle things. Again, in my lifetime, I've seen radical changes that
There's
way.
that. There certainly is that.
Because Tom Brokaw called, my parents the greatest generation because they went through the Depression and lived, went through World War II, and most of them lived. A lot of people died. I shouldn't take that too lightly.
Oh yeah.
But they went through so much and came out the other side and said, "Okay, let's go." Instead of saying, "Oh, woe was us, we can't handle this," they said, "Let's get in there and make it happen." And they got in there and made it happen. So
And the replacement rate was much higher then.
that must have been it. That's what made it work.
Yeah.
So,
They started industry when they came back from war and so on.
well, we
And they
talked about that
industrialized.
before. You couldn't have asked for a better position for a country to be in than we were when Japan surrendered.
But
Yeah.
also, we had the population, the replacement rate to bolster that economic expansion, which benefits everyone.
Yeah. Well,
So by virtue of reducing replacement rate, you can't bolster that expansion, which increases everyone's quality of life. Now, I really don't think that that we have to worry about strains on resources. I really don't.
well, no. We have barely tapped all the resources we could tap. I mean, again, at some point, a gazillion years from now, and with 20 billion people in the world, maybe we've topped out on resources. But
Even then, it's a perhaps.
yeah, even that is perhaps.
Yeah.
We haven't even begun to hit the limit of what's available to us. So no, when I say I think we should look at a top limit of the human population on Earth, it's not like I'm in a panic. The population bomb that one guy wrote, according to him, we're dead right now. you know?
Exactly.
So, no, I just think you do have, like in China, they're building cities just to have jobs for people to do. They don't have enough Chinese people to live in them. They're just building cities because
Well, they have a different problem. They have a very high replacement rate. Well, they did, then they didn't, and now they're building back up to it because their replacement rate was so high that then they enforced the one-child policy.
yeah, which got us 3 great grandchildren.
Exactly.
But yeah,
But the problem there is it's a mercantilist society, and so they have to produce goods in order to keep everyone happy. And one interesting stat, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I'll tell you anyway. The Communist Party leaders actually spend more on domestic security than they do international security. That's because they fear their citizens more than they do their adversaries abroad.
interesting point because I was just reading about Tiananmen Square again.
Yeah.
And how hard that was, and could there be a popular uprising in China?
We've seen a lot of bank runs, a lot of,
When you say bank runs, is that an uprising or what is that?
well, I think it's first steps of an uprising. I mean, distrust in financial institutions, racing to get your cash out.
Mm-hmm.
That's indicative of a step in that direction. But
Okay.
again, the government spends so much money on supplanting those efforts at home. So in essence, they do have to, because they're not a service-based economy, they do have to keep everyone
Producing
artificially
stuff, yeah.
employed in order to keep them not
From not rioting or whatever.
rebelling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we don't have that problem here.
That we know of.
Well, yeah. It might
It's
rhyme.
not like the federal government didn't get really oppressive there for as long as they've got away with it. Same
True.
thing. You know?
That's true.
Yeah.
I'll concede that.
Yeah.
I think here it's not the fact that people can't provide for themselves because there's a lack of quality work, like you said, plenty of quality labor and so on. It's what creates the uprisings that we see here is two things, and they both lead into each other. One is that self-destructive Marxist-esque ideology that promotes people tearing down the system and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also by virtue of the main thing, which is society, individuals with a lack of overall purpose.
Yeah.
So as purpose declines, people don't value their
I
work
think
and so on.
I kind of think of that as almost adolescence, because
It is.
as a child, you of course depend on your parents. That's a fact.
Mhm.
You don't have a problem with it. Hopefully they don't have a problem with it. That's the way it is. I would say a fairly typical adolescence is a kid feeling like I'm my own person. Now, they're beginning to identify as their own individual with their own thoughts and outlook on life. And so they get mad at their parents. Why are they mad at their parents? Because they know they depend on their parents. So they can't really be independent the way their mind wants them to be. So there's a lot of resentment of, I want to be free, but I can't be free because I need my parents to support me. Until such time as they get old enough and hopefully developed enough, they really can go out on their own, be self-sufficient. And what happens? All of a sudden they don't hate their parents anymore because there's no reason to resent them.
Mhm.
Well, we got big brother governments, kind of the same thing, treating people like adolescents and hoping they don't do anything. You know?
Yeah, and also I think as adolescents, they can't really take pride in much.
Right,
You know,
right.
there's maybe sports or recreational activities, but yeah, they spend their time in school and they feel like this is menial, mundane work. It doesn't give them much purpose.
Yeah.
I think the
That's what I
same.
feel about that. And I know college graduates who
Yeah.
their sense of their own personal worth is not that good.
Yeah.
Their sense of identity comes from working for the government, being involved in all these socialist kind of things, whether they use the name socialist or not.
Yeah.
And if you take that away from them, they don't even know who they are. So
That's right.
I don't know where we are here and how much longer you want to go.
We can go for another 15,
20 minutes,
30,
15 minutes, 50
30
yeah.
minutes or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, okay. Whenever you gotta go, we can
Sure.
go. Yeah, that's a big sense that I have. I guess we both have. A lot of people do and a lot of people don't, as far as this dependence on. In other words, if you got a problem, what do you do about it? The way I was raised and the way I do it is, if I got a problem, solve it. But a lot of people, if they got a problem, is you go to some agency and say, "Hey, here's my problem, solve it."
Yeah.
And
That's self-sufficiency. That's right.
yeah, so it's funny. I better watch what I say here, but you know, in the community, we all detest City Hall because in our community, City Hall is basically worthless, and we all know it, and we know it firsthand because we are at City Hall and we communicate continually, and they're still worthless. But you know, the people around here will re-elect those people, count on it.
Mhm.
And I do not understand that because they think government's going to solve their problems. And even if that's the case, well, elect people who will solve your problems. I don't get any of this. So
Yeah. Well, that's in my mind, that's another problem of people thinking that the scope of government is wider than it should be.
oh, absolutely. Again, in my lifetime,
Yeah.
big time.
You should be more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
99% of your problems, unless it's crime or
And crime
Infrastructure.
comes from the home, in a manner of speaking.
well, it certainly does. But as far as an individual that takes care of their home and doesn't produce criminals,
yeah.
criminality,
Yeah.
you expect the government, the city government, or federal government, state government, to protect you
Yeah.
or enforce justice, and infrastructure and so on. But that's 1% maybe of all your problems.
Yeah.
99% of them you should be able to solve yourself.
Yeah. Perfect example, I know you may have noticed they're digging up the drain at the end of the street here.
Oh yeah.
Well, the guy who came to do the saw cuts first. The first step is cutting a big rectangle open so they can lift it all up and dig it up. So of course, I went and talked to him. I said, "What are you doing?" You know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, I wish I'd had my video camera going. I just set him off. He said, "These, if I was as vehement as I could be, I don't think I was as vehement as he was." He said, "These damn idiots, they won't clean the drains while they're cleanable. They wait till they get all clogged up. They don't sweep the streets. They have street," and I can tell you a whole story there. I won't waste your time right now about the street sweeping program that they had. That they spent millions and did nothing. But in the end, these drains, and this is not the only one, they get totally clogged up to the point where they have to dig them up and replace the pipe. And when they could have just routinely cleaned them in the first place, you know, and he just got going because this is what he does basically for a living, is do the saw cuts. So the next crew comes in and digs it all up, and he just goes from one place to the next. And that's just representative of the problems in the city. It's not just like, if that was the only thing, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it's just representative. So, yeah. So all these governments we need more money. Well, yeah, because you don't spend the money wisely in the first place. So.
Yep. People should learn how inefficient government is designed to be.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I guess people who really want things done will go and do it themselves.
Yeah. And again, I've been a teacher, so I know the educational system very well from being a student and a teacher. I've been in business, and I hang with a lot of people who work for government or you know, other teachers and so forth. And it's night and day. In business, just get it done right now. We don't hear any freaking excuses, you know. You sign on for this, do it, you know.
Yeah.
You go to the other side, it's like, well, we're working on it, we're thinking about it, we're going to do a study. It's night and day.
Yeah.
So the more you have government do things that private sector used to do, that's how much worse it's going to get and how quickly it's going to happen. You know? So
I agree.
because I'll guarantee you, if I had a contract to maintain the drains in the city, and the contract included replacing drains at my business's cost, because they got so clogged they can't be cleaned out anymore. So now instead of paying people $75 to clean the drains once a year,
Right.
I'm not paying $10,000 to replace them. I'm going to make sure those drains get cleaned.
Yeah.
You know, city government doesn't give a damn.
Yeah.
So,
No, they do not.
so I don't know what else we got. What else you got?
Anything you want to talk about? Chip? You got any questions for me on anything?
Well, we could touch on that one, this topic that is kind of in the air and has been in the air for 1,000 years maybe or more. The Middle East.
We can.
Again, the new old nation of Israel was formed in 1948.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in 1948. I don't remember that too well, but I've seen a lot happen in the Middle East in all that time.
Yes.
There have been times when it was relatively peaceful. The changes of allegiance have been all over the place. If anybody thinks it's always been Muslims against Jews and it's always been Israel against, pick one, Iran, and it's as simple as that. No, it's changed back and forth and around. Iran's leadership has changed radically, a whole lot, from being pro-Western to being anti-Western. You can almost snap your fingers and presto, it's changed.
Yeah.
And I just, yeah, and it's that people are dying, and not just in the Middle East, in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we can all look at World War II and the times related to World War II and the hundreds of millions of people who died needlessly in the Soviet Union, in China, and the Middle East, and for that matter, Europe. And it seems like we've gotten past that. It shouldn't have happened in the first place, but we're kind of past that. China, as bad as it is, they aren't slaughtering people by the tens of millions. Neither is the Soviet Union. And here we are in the Middle East and northern Africa generally, but maybe North Africa more. It's still going on. Why? You tell me why.
Well, I think it's I'm not too informed on Africa, but I would assume most of it, well, I think it's one of two things. It's either territorial disputes or religious fundamentalism.
Yeah.
And I've had arguments with people, what's more corrupting, or what drives more, in these regions, the violence. Is it religion or is it money? And it's a good question. Especially looking at Israel and the Islamic factions that have opposed Israel militarily in the past. There has been a significant monetary factor to that continued pressure, but I think fundamentally what drives a lot of it is religion. At this point, I don't think it's so much territorial, which I think people would probably be surprised to hear.
I'm not too surprised. I get it.
But it's you take Hamas for instance. The only reason they were able to survive so long, I forget the exact year that Israel gave Gaza to the Palestinians to create their own state, and they ethnically cleansed Jewish people from their homes in Gaza. There are people alive now that used to live in Gaza. Jewish people shopped in the markets in Gaza. And when the Palestinians took control and they elected their own officials and elected Hamas, an argument's made that, well, Netanyahu, he allowed Qatari money to go to Hamas. And the argument is, well, Netanyahu wanted to create Hamas as a faction that would become militant against Israelis, so therefore they could come in and fight them again.
He needed an enemy to fight.
Right,
saying,
which to me doesn't really make a lot of sense, because why give Gaza away? Why give territory away that they fought hard for through the late 1900s, through many wars, just to create
an excuse to go back in and take it again?
In reality, they gave this land back with massive amounts of infrastructure, greenhouses, water purification sites, and the money that was funneled in was supposed to be for that government to provide for its civilians basic infrastructure and safety and so on. Unfortunately, that money was taken and it was used to line the pockets of the leadership, which does not reside in Gaza. And unfortunately, most of the money that has flowed in via donations to help poor Gazans and so on has just been funneled directly to Hamas leadership, who some of them are worth billions of dollars.
Well, I know the Gazans certainly did not benefit from Hamas taking over.
No, they did not.
Their standard of living went down. I know this, and I also know that once Hamas got themselves elected, that was the last election.
It was the last election, and unfortunately, so you could say, well, Sam, with all this evidence, why don't you think that money is the corrupting factor here? Well, shockingly enough, and maybe this has changed a bit since October the 7th, but you could see even, on October 7th, hostages were taken from very pro-Palestinian communes in southern Israel, some of them that I've actually visited personally. These hostages were taken and paraded through the streets, and Palestinian civilians were cheering for this. There was recorded phone calls of one of the non-Hamas military-aged men that went in and, as he's coming back during the October 7th raid, let's say, he calls his parents and he doesn't say, "Mom, Dad, I broke out of the prison in which we live, I liberated myself." He calls to say, "Mom, Dad, I killed Jews."
Mm-hmm. I'm aware of that, yeah.
Oh, and they're so happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think without that fundamental extremism that you would really have that type of prolonged conflict.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's driven from the top. I don't think there's any groundswell of support. It's just they've had it drummed into them. They've had it educated into them.
Yeah, and even with the monetary gain that the leadership and the military regime has from prolonging not only armed conflict, which they don't really take any part of because they're in Doha and the Emirates with billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Without that extremism on the ground that maybe is wavering now given the humanitarian circumstance that's on the ground.
Who's wavering?
Maybe the extremism is wavering. Maybe they would rather have peace and coexistence now, but you could probably make the argument, obviously, well, since they've been so destroyed, are they really going to blame Hamas, or are they going to blame Israel and then thusly become more extreme towards Israel and obviously the Jews? But it's to me the conflict now. I think the Palestinians should be able to stay in Gaza, govern themselves, and become a free and prosperous nation.
Mm-hmm. But
I don't see any way that the world can see that happen with Hamas still in power.
I would say not a snowball's chance. No.
Right, and
not a snowball's chance in a desert that can happen.
And what we're witnessing now is a circumstance in which Israel is winning the war, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
militarily, but losing politically.
Yeah, I was very upset at how quickly people turned on Israel after they invaded Gaza, and I think, get a clue, people.
So, to put some context behind this, the pictures and video of Gaza is terrible. You have people that are extremely hungry. They don't have places to sleep because their homes have been destroyed. Um, but the reason why Israel has gone to the extents they have to destroy all of the buildings, people would say, well, clearly the aim is to remove all ability to live there, to remove the population. Well, perhaps. However, anyone who's being honest and knows that there are thousands of sieges embedded into thousands of unknown, most of them are known now, but beforehand unknown entry points into a vast tunnel system that has electricity, air conditioning. This was where the Hamas fighters put together their war machine. And the only way that Israel could combat that is by destroying every single building and somehow destroying all of these entry points.
And you have to ask, I have to ask myself, why are those tunnels there? What they had to have a motive along the lines of, we're going to set ourselves up that we can, I don't know, like, I'm sorry if I'm going to say it, but like rats out of the ground, you know, that they can go out and do their damage and then run back and hide again. Those tunnels don't serve any peaceful purpose. There's no utilitarian purpose except militarily. For what, you know, except to do what Hamas has been doing.
Yeah, and these are not, to your point, these are not utility tunnels.
Yeah.
So I think as far as a solution goes, the Palestinian people should not be expelled from this land. They should be allowed to remain, but Hamas has to be removed, and Hamas is it drives so much of the plight of the Palestinian people because they beg of the destruction from Israel. So they have to be removed, and I think it's incumbent upon all of the Arab countries that share lineage with the Palestinian people, religion with the Palestinian people, interest in the welfare, which they've stated to the Palestinian people, to come in and fully rebuild Gaza and essentially control Gaza and set them up until they can then pull out and leave Gaza to be by themselves. And I think once that's done, you know, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And hopefully the war can end soon. Hamas can be fully destroyed.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, because, you know, it's like they're everywhere, you know.
Yeah, so there's estimates that they've, I can't remember, I think I heard a figure of about $500 million that they've actually received via selling aid that has been commandeered by Hamas fighters in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
That's a primary reason why a lot of these people are hungry.
Yeah, I cannot buy that Israel's trying to starve the people out, but they can't be sending the food. I mean, I've seen that happen many times when, again, Africa, I mentioned sending aid to Africa, that many Africans just wish we wouldn't be so nice. But the other thing is that aid goes to Africa, and what happens after that? Well, a few people will get very rich selling off that, handling that aid, shall we say, and everybody else doesn't benefit.
It depends on where in Africa you're looking, but in war-torn areas, you can make a good argument for supplying temporary aid just to feed people and medicine. Yeah,
unless the military is stealing it.
Correct.
Which happens a lot. And I don't just mean Israel, and I don't just mean right now. I mean, it's been a continual situation. And again, I think I've been talking about the ineffectiveness of government. I think there's a lot of people say, well, we're doing our job, we're sending the stuff, and they don't think, okay, then what? Why we've been doing this for a century and we got nothing to show for it. It clearly says we're not doing it the way it works. So
Yeah, I think what Israel needs to do to protect Palestinian lives is to send in so much aid that they don't know what to do with it. They need to absolutely flood Gaza with aid, sequester the people in a safe place.
Well, that's another thing is Hamas is not too proud of itself to intermingle with the population in civilian clothes, so you don't even know for sure who's Hamas and who isn't.
Yeah, I think if you can allow that to happen and kind of root them out when you have the chance to, once you destroy the infrastructure that they operate within, meaning level the buildings and really destroy all the tunnel systems, because the tunnel systems is the driver, the tunnels. And, once they destroy that, then they can finally have someone come in, enforce the law. Any Hamas-related fighters that are still there can essentially...
Yeah, you say that again. How do you know this guy's Hamas and that guy isn't?
Well, so once they destroy the infrastructure, and another Arab country can come in and help them rebuild and enforce law and order there, then they would essentially be responsible. But at that point, Hamas, even the ones that are left, don't have the infrastructure to fire rockets into Israel, which beg for rocket fire back, which the Hamas fighters are underneath all of the civilians. So they're hiding, if I go out and shoot my neighbor's wife, and then my neighbor comes over to shoot me back, and I'm hiding behind my own kids.
Yeah.
That's essentially what's happening here. And so they really have to destroy that tunnel infrastructure, flood the zone with aid, allow the Palestinians not to, starve and have medical food assistance and so on, and finally rebuild Gaza. And who knows if that's successful, if the Saudis or the Emiratis or the Qataris
I know they're
come in,
kind of working that
fund
direction.
it, then we could have a beautiful place there in Gaza.
Yeah. It's going to take some doing. And like I said, it's like somebody flipped a switch. I don't know my history that well, but you had the Shah of Iran, who was installed by Western countries in Iran. So a little bit of hinkiness going on there, but installed to be pro-Western, and he lasted until 1979, I think. And then you had the Ayatollah, and that's when it really hit the fan. Not that there weren't problems before, but that's when it really hit the fan.
Yeah. Well, right now I think it's alarming to see what Western support for Palestinians, how that's represented.
Yeah.
It's not a representation that says we need to save them from being starved or protect them from military anguish from either side of the war. It's they need to liberate Israel, and they chant things like "from the river to the sea," which is returning all these Palestinians to Jerusalem and Haifa and all these places. I think that the loudest supporters of the Palestinians do them a huge disservice by promulgating things that are entirely unrealistic.
And I've seen reporting on Vietnam real time because I was around then. Various stuff that's going on. I've never seen reporting that was one-sided. It's so one-sided you don't even think about it, but it's all from the Hamas Palestinian side, and I'll say Hamas side really, not from the Israeli side. Nobody's embedded, and maybe Israel doesn't want them there, but nobody's embedded with the Israeli soldiers filming. Used to do it in Vietnam. There'd be cinematographers and what did we call them, video crews with the American soldiers, going wherever the American soldiers went. It was hazardous duty for the photographer.
Yeah.
But you saw the American side of it, and I'm not defending Americans in Vietnam, but
Right.
you saw it. You don't see that in what's going on here. You have no idea.
And this is a common talking point against the Israelis in this conflict. Why don't you let independent journalists come in and verify what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
The reason that is because, you know, the people who are anti-Israel, they chant, "Oh, war crimes, war crimes." Being the nation that is invading and essentially occupying at this point, if they allow journalists to come into an active war theater and those people get killed or hurt, they are responsible, and that is technically a war crime under UN law. I'm not a fan of UN law, just as a disclaimer here.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some Geneva Convention things that are good.
Yeah.
But that's and also, again, this is an act of war, and if you're posting live video and photographs, it's public information that the enemy, the proverbial enemy, can
Hamas,
see and can benefit from.
Yeah.
And you know, if they see where they're operating or what routes they're taking, they can go and booby trap these places.
Yeah.
And we've had a higher loss rate for Israeli service members than in the 6-day war.
Well, 6-day war was 6 days,
Well,
and it was mostly Air Force. Am I right? So it was,
the 6-day war was also every single surrounding Arab country
Mhm.
coming in and trying to destroy the tiny little militias. That
yeah,
were
it
there.
was pathetic. I was around at the time. And it was reported constantly on the news, the build up to it. And I'm thinking, man, this is the end of Israel. And then, like, somebody snapped their fingers. No, it's not, because
Yeah.
Israel struck first.
Yeah.
So, and I did want to mention, you say you don't know much about Africa, and I don't know maybe a lot more than you, but the same operators that are doing what they're doing, Hamas clones basically, are doing the same thing in Africa. And maybe the one difference is Israel fights back. This is pathetic loss of life, both Christians and Jews, and some Muslims, from Hamas type operations. Boko Haram, and I can't even think of all the names, but they're all the same people in a sense, and they just. What you say? What is their objective besides killing people? You know, it's just they don't bring anything good with them. So.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's Sudan right now, where there's an active genocide occurring. I mean, a real armless people being absolutely slaughtered by militias in cold blood, and you don't see any reporting about this.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me wonder, why is it always centered around, but we don't hear anything about these other conflicts.
If they said everything they say about Israel, I'd say okay. If they said this,
right,
gave the same coverage to Hamas and Iran, and all these terrorist organizations, that's all they are. And just because the government says they're terrorists, I don't automatically believe.
Sure.
But these are terrorist organizations.
Absolutely.
They're genocidal squads out there to shoot innocent people.
Yeah, I mean, I when I was in Israel, I had to go into a rocket shelter when I was 15 years old because Hamas indiscriminately fired rockets at the area in which I was sleeping that night.
I mean, there's no such thing as a good war, but if the war has a military objective to accomplish something that in some sense of this word you can say this is worthwhile, like, okay, our revolution, American Revolution, well, not everybody in the time thought it was a good idea. Even after it was over and we were free, well, still a lot of people were saying, I preferred King George, but there was an objective. You look at what they're doing in Northern Africa and Middle East.
Yeah.
The objective is kill people.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they make the same arguments for Israel, and they say, well, they're turning Gaza into a concentration camp. But I don't see any reporting on the Uyghur Muslim concentration camps in China.
Oh, heavens no. Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well,
It's
I
baffling.
don't know. I lost faith in the media journalists in the 1990s at least, if not sooner.
Yeah.
I know them to be narrative spinners. What's her name? Cheryl Atkinson, who worked for CBS and CNN, I believe, who basically got invited to leave CBS because she was too vocal about how horrible the reporting was.
Yeah.
And she wrote that book. What's it called? The Narrative? No, it's called. I can't think of the name of it, but she talks about the narrative instead of journalism. So yeah. So people listening, make up your own minds, but do the research first and don't trust anybody. Not us, not the media,
and certainly not the government.
and certainly not the government. So maybe that's a stopping point, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your coming, and
My pleasure.
and I'm sure we all understand monetary policy now just fine. So.
That's right.
Okay, thanks everybody. If you're still here, thanks for hanging in there, and we'll talk to you next time.